and welcome back to episode 4 of season 2 of The Summer I Turn Swiftie. We are two USA Today bestselling authors, and like many, Jessica and I were transfixed by the last season of The Summer I Turned Pretty and the global phenomenon that it became. The show is steeped in Taylor Swift songs, Easter eggs, and parallels to classic movies and TV shows. Now that a movie's been announced, we're doing a once-a-week rewatch and discussion of all of the above with a Swiftie, moi, and Jessica. It's a new year. What are you calling yourself? Are you a Swiftie yet?
It's a new year, new me. I don't know. I'm going into it with an open mind. Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. You know, that was like the song they used for the trailer for the last 3-4 episodes of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Good. Before we get going, we just like to ask you once again to please like, subscribe, share the show with friends. We are getting our subscribers up, and that's so fun to see. And it was so fun to see all the comments on the Christmas episode, and we had a lot of fun doing that. But now we are back in the weeds. That is season 2. And we can get through it together, right? Right? We can get through it together. So happy New Year. How are you, Jessica? How was your holiday?
Happy New Year. It was great. I saw that you have been watching a new show.
Watching a new show called Heated Rivalry, which, like, it's so funny. All these people keep messaging me like, this is how I got over Conrad
really?
Fisher is watching this. And I'm like, oh, I'm not over Conrad Fisher. I have room in my heart for more than one person. But it is good. I would say that one of the funniest coincidences is the main character is a half Asian man and a white man, but like half Asian like Belly is. And that character drives a Land Rover. And I was like, how am I obsessed with 2 shows in the same year where the main character drives a Land Rover? I haven't seen anybody talk about that. I need to start making some videos about the parallels between The Summer I Turned Pretty and Heated Rivalry.
It's a sign. New year, new car, maybe?
New
For
car for me? Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
It's funny. I got a new phone over the holiday, and so I had to like reset up all of my apps, which is so annoying.
The horror.
But Instagram was like reconfiguring my algorithm, and it was like, these are the things we think you want more of. And the first one was Chris Briney. It was like, do you want more? Like,
and did you click yes? Yes, I'm still interested.
That is research for my podcast Instagram.
Obviously.
Don't judge me.
Yeah, yes. I do want more. Well, we are in the year, to pick up on a theme from Jessica last time. There's the room where it happens, and we are in the year where it happens. And by that, I mean the year where the movie is going to get filmed. And we are eventually going to start getting some leaks. There were actually a lot of leaks for season 3. There was like a crowdsourced Google Doc, which I admit that I did access. Maybe just like keep the insanity at bay or defeat it. I'm not sure which, but for sure we're going to get some leaks once they do start filming, though they're really going to, I think, keep an even tighter set, if at all possible, this time, because the show has gotten so much bigger that they want to like preserve that for people. But, you know, they're going to be, I'm sure, filming it again in North Carolina. And you have a funny little story about being in North Carolina.
I do. Well, I was going to get to, well, that's fine. Yeah, I was going to get to it when we talk about this episode, but why not? So yeah, this is the episode where we'll get to your short episode recap shortly, but spoiler, they go to the Boardwalk and Cousins and play a bunch of games and have a little friendly competition. And it has been, because I did watch this in real time years ago when it came out, I started rewatching it and I'm like, we have been to this Boardwalk. This is Carolina Beach. And I knew that they had filmed this, you know, mostly in the Wilmington area, but I had not been to the other beaches where they've filmed, like Wrightsville and, you know, right around Wilmington. I wasn't a super fan of the show or anything like that when I was in the area, so I wasn't seeking out locations, but I did go with my family to Carolina Beach for a week, and we rode that Ferris wheel, which was perilous.
Did you go on the Tower of Terror?
I was trying to think, was there actually a Tower of Terror there? Because I think they kind of like MacGyvered together a lot of those interior arcade scenes. Like there was not a big arcade there or anything. I don't know if there was a Tower of Terror, but there was a very overpriced Ferris wheel.
Nice.
Which we did do. And my kids are like thrill seekers because I live in Ohio where I live. There's a big amusement park called Kings Island and we have season passes. So we go there all the time. My kids are no stranger to like roller coasters and high speeds. And they were more afraid of that Ferris wheel than anything.
Jeez.
Kings Island. It was not the most stable ride I've ever been on.
All right.
So anyway, it was super cool.
Fun. Well, next time you go back,
and realize
you will have to go around and look at all the places. Next time.
Yeah.
Next time. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. I will get into my short episode summary then, since you brought it up. And it is short. It's not short. It's the perfect length. Okay.
Okay. It's perfect. I love you just the way you are, Catherine.
Oh, thanks. So this episode is called Love Game. Love is our word for the season, even though, as I've said before, I find that an interesting word to pick because I think this whole season is about Belly denying that she is still in love with Conrad, which we will find out again in this episode. But anyway, we start where we left off at the end of episode 3, which is Conrad having a panic attack on the beach. Stephen comes to find him, but before he does, we see that Conrad has actually gone into the ocean and put his feet in the ocean, which of course he seeks solace in the ocean. It's his comfort place.
With his shoes on, though.
Oh, yeah. Like
shoes and everything.
He's having a full-on panic attack. He asks Stephen to talk to him until he recovers. He discloses that he has them on a regular basis, panic attacks, and that they've been worse since his mom died. Stephen tells a story about Conrad as a kid and why he looked up to him and why he still looks up to him. And the reason for the panic attack is that Conrad found out that he got into Stanford. His mom had a fantasy that he'd find himself there, and Stephen reminds him that he's been dreaming about going to Stanford since he was 10 years old. Major foreshadowing. And interesting that Belly probably knew this, and maybe some insight into their relationship that I had never thought about before, but we'll talk about that when this comes up in a subsequent episode. He doesn't want to go because things are finally getting better with Jer, who is going to Finch, which is near Brown. Jer doesn't even know he applied. Please don't tell him. So once again, Conrad is keeping secrets from Jeremiah, which never turns out well for Conrad. The next day, Belly gets up and thinks that she sees Susanna in the house, but it's her sister. Belly is wearing her pink sleeping shirt. Sky offers her a muffin, but they're for the open house, so that Belly does not get a muffin. But she does steal a muffin. Anyway, the brothers come in from surfing wearing their blue and red towels, which I think are I forgot to go check this morning. There's a whole interaction. And then after Conrad leaves, sassy Conrad leaves, Sky says he's grown into quite the asshole. And Jer says, you have no idea. Shut up, Jer. Just shut up. Anyway, then we have a scene in Conrad's room. It used to be his aunt's. Conrad tells his aunt that everything in the house is his mom. She picked everything. She planted every flower. And that's why he's so attached to it. While his aunt is trying to convince him that, he can still remember his mom without the house, the air conditioning conks out. And sassy Conrad is like, sounds like an Aunt Julia problem. I love me some sassy Conrad. In Belly's room, the camera lingers on Junior Mint. And then we learn that Belly stole a muffin, and she shares it with Taylor, who's telling her not to get sucked back into the Fisher drama. Also, shut up, Taylor. Shut up, Jer, and shut up, Taylor. And then she says, the past doesn't determine your fate. It's the choices you make today. Okay, sensei. Anyway, for the rest of this episode, Belly is wearing a shirt that I am 100% sure is Conrad's. It's certainly... the internet sleuths have figured out that it's the same brand as a shirt that we see him wear a bunch of times, that like striped shirt that he wears later on in the show. It definitely looks like a shirt that Conrad would wear. The real estate agent arrives and Conrad introduces Belly as his girlfriend, but then immediately apologizes for doing that. And they are about to have a moment when Jer interrupts. Julia tells them the open house is canceled and they need to get out of the house. And Belly suggests that they go to the boardwalk and invite Sky. And do cousins. When they get there, Jeremiah says the last time they were at the boardwalk, Belly was 12 and she lost to Conrad, which is so interesting because we're going to learn this episode that is not true, and had to ride the Tower of Terror that made her cry. We do learn that she was there the summer after with Conrad when she was 13. And we'll get more of that in a second. So Belly and Conrad get very competitive. The great boardwalk showdown that they used to do as a tournament until Belly and Conrad got too competitive and it got banned. I think it reminded me about Conrad referencing her competitive later on in season 3. There's a lot of lingering looks between Belly and Conrad, and they are acting like kids, which is actually nice to see. For instance, Belly is shooting Jer at laser tag because he sucks at everything. That was satisfying for me, but then it comes down to Belly and Conrad, and Jer grabs Belly and holds her for Conrad to shoot her, which is a metaphor for what is horrendous. Sky also tells them that Susanna wasn't perfect. There were two sides to the relationship between the sisters. And in fact, that Susanna's behavior towards Julia created a Christmas tradition called Shitmas, which is actually kind of funny. They also
We left that off of our Christmas special.
Yeah, yes, exactly. We left Shitmas off, including the flashbacks we get, because they weren't about Belly and Conrad, but you're right, we did leave them out. They run into Cam Cameron at the climbing part of the arcade, and they do something called Capture the Flag. Conrad looks unhappy when Belly is catching up with him, with Cam Cameron, sorry. Like, she's catching up with Cam Cameron, and Conrad looks jealous. Steven wins the Capture the Flag, which makes it 2 for the boys. But next up is Shoot Your Shot, which is a basketball thing. Lots of flirting. Belly beats Conrad, though. I think Conrad missed the last basket on purpose, and she gets to pick a prize. And there is Junior Mint's sister. And this is when we get the flashback to the first time we're going to learn about Junior Mint, finally. The first time she ever had her heart broken was at the Boardwalk because Conrad asked her to go just us the summer she was 13. He was 15. He wanted, or 14, almost 15. He wanted to play ring toss. She thought he wanted to see the girl running it. And so she leads him by the arm over to it. And we'll see the scene from Conrad's point of view eventually. Belly, let me just say, you're an idiot. Anyway, she doesn't come back. He keeps playing. He wins her Junior Mint. But she says that she wanted the giraffe because even at 13, Belly was sassy to Conrad when she was trying to push him away. In the present, Belly takes the giraffe as a prize, rebuffing Conrad, like not a little sibling for Junior Mint. But then she makes a side bet with Conrad and about riding the Tower of Terror. And they have one little 30 seconds alone. And then already the narration in Belly's head is he made it so hard not to love him. When he was sweet like this, I remembered why I did. Used to love him, I mean. Sure, Belly, sure. Work harder. We don't believe you. Meanwhile, Laurel is in New York to promote her book. Cleveland is there, and they have a heart-to-heart. Belly also sends her a photo of the three of them, her mom and Susanna, trying to connect, but Laurel keeps her at arm's length. Belly and Laurel are kind of on the same journey to me, one keeping the other at arm's length. I mean, that Belly is keeping Conrad at arm's length, and Laurel is doing the same thing to Belly. The last event is go-karts. Conrad beats Belly, of course. So she has to go on the Tower of Terror, but Jeremiah rides it with her. And she has another flashback to when she's a kid and when she was sick as a kid and they hung out. Whatever. Conrad and Steven ride back in the car together, and Conrad looks out the window like we've seen Belly do. It's dark. He's had a lot of fun. Steven mentions that he hasn't seen Conrad this happy in a long time. It felt good feeling like a kid again, Conrad says. He says it's hard to be happy, even though he knows that's what his mom wanted. Steven says, not that I want you guys to get back together, but I did notice a vibe between you and Belly. And Conrad is sort of speechless and then smiling. When they get back to the house, Belly gets out of Jer's Jeep and drops the giraffe on the ground because that's how much she gives a crap about the giraffe. She keeps Junior Mint all these years, but the giraffe is on the ground in 3.2 seconds. Conrad picks it up for her. They are alone, and they have another alone moment together. And he asks her what her name is, and she says Mildred. And then he asks her, how come you didn't want another Junior Mint? And she's like, I'm not 13 years old anymore, Conrad. You know what, Belly? Fuck you. Anyway, when they get in the house, it's
Catherine
empty.
did want a sibling for Junior Mint.
Obviously.
Yeah.
The house is empty of everything. Julia lied to them, and they are all trying not to cry. And so that is the super unhappy note that we end on. So yeah,
pretty devastating walking
it
into
is
that
devastating.
empty house.
Yeah. Yikes. Okay. What was your funnies?
It's hard to pick just one scene. I like the sequence at the Boardwalk. I think several of the characters express kind of a relief at this weird combination between guilt and relief that you do feel when you're grieving somebody, but then you have a really good day,
Yeah.
And, this push and pull between being able to have fun again, being able to enjoy each other again. And I think it's a little bit that way watching it too, because so much of the previous episodes have been really heavy with, Susanna's funeral and all this. And then here as a viewer, you get to kind of go along to this nostalgic Boardwalk, literally for me, because I was like, oh, I've been there. So I thought I liked all of those scenes. It was a lot of fun, and even,
sorry,
go ahead.
Just nostalgia, yeah. I mean, it's an emotional relief too, right? And I think it actually kind of parallels episode 4 of season 1, which was the 4th of July episode, which started with some tension, right? The dad arriving, why is he here? But then the kids go to the beach and they have fun and they act like kids. And Jeremiah and Conrad and Belly with the blender when they're making the margaritas are acting like kids. And that was like really the first glimpse that we saw of, the real Conrad in season 1. And I think here we are seeing him again. Like he is coming back to himself in that moment where they can all return to being kids again and just having fun and acting silly and reenacting something that they all haven't done since they were like 12 and 14 years old. So yeah, I think that's all really well done.
It's kind of an interesting choice to have them run into Cam Cameron again too, because even though Conrad does kind of look a little jealous when Belly's talking to him, there's nothing, to me, there was no like weight to Cam being there. It's not, there's like a little bit of awkwardness with how they left things, but not really. And Cam, kind of hilariously, he's like working this climbing wall, but then all of a sudden he just like comes along with them as their referee for the rest of the day. Was he getting off? Is he not doing what he's supposed to, just kind of funny.
That makes no sense. He ended up being their like tour guide for the day.
Yeah, he ended up being their like, MC. For the whole rest of the competition.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was like, if you liked that character, it's kind of nice to see a friendly face. And they're also kind of just acting like kids. And also like his internship on the boat didn't work out. It's like, I think it kind of puts things in perspective. Like at this age, a lot of things don't work out that you think are going to work out. And you kind of just, make the best of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting narrative choice to bring him back. And we'll see where they take his character in a couple of episodes, which is also interesting. So one thing that like an Easter egg that was planted way back in season 1 and episode 2 is, Belly goes on her first date with Cam, right, to the drive-in, and that gets interrupted by the boys. And then when Belly comes home, Conrad is there, and Belly is pissed and confronts him and says, you had to interrupt like my first date. And there's this expression that goes across Conrad's face when she says that. And the connection that people have made is to this flashback to the boardwalk, because in fact, Conrad thought that was their first date or Belly's first date.
Oh, that would not have occurred to me. Yeah, we will find out. I mean, back to Belly being an unreliable narrator or not. You said she was an idiot, but I think she's an unreliable narrator.
I think
we will find out. We will later see Conrad's point of view of this boardwalk scene, and it's very different from Belly.
Belly doesn't have all the information. Belly makes assumptions. So again, I don't think she's actually narrating this unreliably. I think this is her at 13 years old, and it's a theme for Belly, right? So Belly is there, like this is what she's always dreamed of. Conrad asked her to go alone, right? So we hear from Jeremiah, they haven't been doing this since Belly was 12. They haven't been back to the boardwalk, he thinks, since Belly was 12. But like, does he not know where Junior Mint came from? Anyway, whatever. But in fact, Belly and Conrad were at the boardwalk alone, and Belly thought it was a date. And to me, it was a date. Conrad wanted to like win her a prize. And if you read the books, you know that Belly had been staring at Junior Mint every time that they went to the boardwalk. And so he knows, and he's specifically trying to win her this thing, and he spends all kinds of money to do it. But in that moment, the second, and this is a theme over and over and over again with Belly that we've talked about, when there's two interpretations, Belly always chooses the wrong one. So if it's like, no, he doesn't really like me, or yes, he's interested in me, she's going to go for the didn't like me. Sees a pretty girl at the ring toss, Conrad must be here for the pretty girl, So I think the whole boardwalk sequence is my favorite as well, for like the fun competitive moments between them, but also for what it reveals again about the journey that Belly is on. And I'm going to try and forgive Belly. I know I was being harsh to her in the summary, but I think Belly got so hurt by what happened with her and Conrad. Like, I think she let her guard down, and she let her fears down, and she let him in. And then, she feels like he pushed her away, which is a narrative that Conrad actually confirms in season 3, even though that's not necessarily what we see on screen. And she's so destroyed by that she just has to like wall herself off from Conrad. But obviously she's completely in love with him. Once again, Belly and Conrad are together alone for 30 seconds, and Belly's already thinking about being in love with him. We see this happen, in the past, and we're going to see it happen again in the future. So, it's the Belly and Conrad show, right? As my theme is there's two shows going on. When they're alone, things happen, emotions, things get said, things get confided, they act differently, and they just have their own little bubble. And you see that even in the competitive parts, like it's always them against one another when they're competing, right? So in the events where they compete, it always comes down to Belly and Conrad. So in the laser tag, it always comes down to Belly and Conrad. In the go-karts, it always comes down to Belly and Conrad. And like the show always comes down to Belly and Conrad. It's just one of them is beating one another right now, but like eventually that's always going to come down to them. To me, it's clear, even though in the behind the scenes stuff, Jenny Han talked about this season was Jeremiah rising. So I don't think it's Jeremiah rising. Sorry to disagree with the creator. I think it's Belly shoving down her feelings and shoving Conrad away so that she can be in something that she thinks is contained and manageable.
Like you said, I do think when she looks back on the flashbacks with Conrad, for whatever reason, she tends to believe the worst thing, the more negative thing about him. And it's easier for her to believe that.
Right.
He didn't want to do the ring toss to win me a prize. He wanted to do it because there's a cute girl working the ring toss. You know, like given the choice of these two things, it's easier for her to believe the bad thing. Here in this episode, we also see her not necessarily misremembering, but she has this flashback to Jer staying home with her when she was sick. And with Jer, she sees him in the more favorable light. I think she does the opposite with him. So she could take it two ways. And for some reason with Jer, she takes it the better way. So what happens in that flashback is that Susanna makes Jeremiah stay home with Belly while she's sick with a summer cold. And they then proceed to play all these card games together, have fun. She gets him sick. Then she willingly stays home with him. No one has to tell her to do it. But in the flashback, we see him kind of like arguing with his mom. Like, I don't want to stay home with her when she's sick. I wanted to go, have fun. And she doesn't hold it against him that his mom made him do that. She just like sets it aside and remembers the good stuff. And it's the exact same thing she got mad at Conrad for in season 1 when Susanna asked him to take Belly to the dub ball. She wasn't mad at Susanna over that. She took it out on Conrad. So I think it's like the exact opposite.
Yeah.
The way she looks back on the brothers is opposite. And that's her own, whatever we want to call it, unreliability, whatever is easier for her to believe. But it's very opposite. And I think it's more obvious on the rewatch. And that flashback was a really obvious example of it.
I agree. I think Jeremiah gets the benefit of the doubt, and he gets the like glowy flashback. And we'll see a really good example of that later on in season 3, where she actually swaps out memories. So there's like a sweet memory of Conrad, which she like swaps out, and she's convinced that it was Jeremiah who had this sweet behavior. So yeah, I think that's definitely correct. And I think the one difference, though, is that she does know that Susanna's asked, like she can hear from the living room, I think. So whereas Conrad keeps that from her, and that's a theme, like Conrad does keep things from people. And so I think it's not even so much that Susanna asked her to ask him, because I think if he just said, hey, look, my mom asked me to take you to the ball, but I want to take you anyway. Like, it's not about my mom. I'm just telling you, like, to be upfront. It wouldn't have been a problem, but he withheld something. And then when that comes out, it just feeds into her narrative of like, oh, he doesn't actually like me. So I do think that's a little bit of a difference, but 100%, Jared gets the good edit completely until there's a moment in season where she kind of wakes up and is like, wait a second, have I been looking at this all wrong this entire time? Yes, you have. You definitely have. So anyway.
And I guess we still, if you're listening to this, watching for the first time, you still haven't seen that much of Conrad's point of view yet. So
no.
But
you'll get it.
You will see. It will unfold.
It will unfold.
How different his recollections are.
Yeah, but even again, I find it so interesting. I think I made a video about this of getting like somehow into the Belly Jer side of TikTok and Twitter and whatever. And I'm just like, I don't understand. I watched this show in order without spoilers. Like when I started the show, I literally didn't know anything that went on in the show at all. I just knew that like it had Taylor Swift songs in it and a bunch of people whose opinions I liked the show. I knew nothing. Maybe I had seen the actors in a poster, but I knew nothing about the show. Like, I'm not even sure I knew it was a girl who was into two brothers. I knew nothing. And I immediately was like, oh, he's the end game. This is the like diversion. And I was able to follow that narrative the whole time. Like, and to me, we'll talk about our least favorite scene in a second, but like, I don't think Belly and Jeremiah have any chemistry. Like, I just don't enjoy them together. And I never did. Even when Conrad was being a dick, I always knew there was something else going on. And there's a creator on TikTok who just started watching. He's like a big guy in book talk, and he just started watching the show. And at the beginning, he's like, "Oh, Conrad, like, who are you?" Blah blah blah. And like by episode 5, he's like, "I'm Team Conrad." So it's like yes, of course. To me, it's
Well,
obvious,
okay,
But
so in the
anyway,
present day, we do
yeah,
see Jeremiah be nice to her when he knows she's scared. Everybody knows she's scared to go up this tower thing. Conrad, she cried the last time she did it. Conrad dares her to do it if she loses, which she does. And Jeremiah offers to ride up with her, which is nice of him. I mean,
for sure.
technically anybody could have done that. Anybody could have offered to ride with her, and nobody else did. And, his mom's not there to make him do it. Um, but I also don't think he's scared of it.
Right.
Like, I think Conrad is also, like, scared of this thing. It's like, it's going to be a punishment for either of them to have to go on there. And for Jeremiah, I think it's just, like, no big deal. Like, he's like, well, I'll go with you. Like, I'm not scared
Right.
of it.
Right.
He does not look scared to me. He doesn't look, but I don't
No,
think it's any great sacrifice of him to ride
yeah,
it with her.
I
But he
I
has no,
agree.
we see him be a good friend to her. And then she flashes back to this time that his mom did make him do it. And it's this very like romanticized view of her being sick when she was a kid. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I did not love the flashback, I think, the way that I was supposed to. The flashback was actually probably one of my least favorite scenes because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm just not on I'm not on the Jeremiah train.
I'm not saying like Jeremiah is evil, though he has his moments of being
Yeah.
evil for sure. But like, I think, the episode establishes that yes, both Belly and Conrad, because they're the same person on the same journey, are both terrified of this ride. They both cried having to ride this ride. So no, Conrad wasn't going to volunteer to go on the ride with Belly. He's terrified. As you say, it would have been punishment for him. I think to me, my least favorite parts are really any scene where Belly and Jeremiah are in contrast to when she's with Conrad. I just feel like it's forced. I feel like it's a different Belly. Like people always talk about Conrad changing his personality, but I feel like Belly completely changes her personality when she's with Jeremiah. She puts up with all kinds of things, as you pointed out, that she wouldn't normally put up with, and certainly not from Conrad. And she's just like, I don't know. They have this narrative about each other. And I'm not like doubting that they're actually friends. I think they're all friends, right? They're family, Belly actually says in this episode. But when she's with Conrad, I feel like she's relaxed, she's natural, she's herself. And even though she is trying to keep him at bay, this reminded me so much of the volleyball episode, where like she pushes Jeremiah away. It's like, Conrad, come in, and then they have all these like secret handshakes and everything. I just, I don't know. And then I have to say, Taylor, can you just stop giving advice to Belly?
I
Just
know.
shut up.
We see her egging her on again when she gets off the Tower of Terror. She's like,
Right.
interesting.
Interesting, because they held hands. Like, it's just interesting. Why is it interesting, Belly? Why, Taylor, why are you so invested? Like, what did Jeremiah do to make you like so into him versus you hate on Conrad so badly? And I just feel like there's more context for this in the books, because in the books, Taylor tried to hit on Conrad and Conrad rebuffed her. And so then she's like actually hooks up with Jeremiah, and Belly doesn't care. Like Belly would have lost her shit if Taylor had hooked up with Conrad and just at the suggestion of it loses her shit. But she does not care about her being with Jeremiah. So in the show, though, I'm not sure they've totally set up, like, even if I believe why she thinks she shouldn't be with Conrad, I don't know why she's pushing Jeremiah. Like, are there only 2 boys in the entire universe? Like, why are you pushing Jeremiah on Belly so hard when you know your friend is still in love with Conrad? I don't get it.
There's also Cam Cameron, the new referee of the
Sure,
Boardwalk
go back to
competition.
Cam. I mean, whatever, exactly. Find some other boy whose last name is not Fisher. Yeah, and you mentioned it's, heartbreaking that Belly and Steven are excited to see someone read Laurel's book at the Boardwalk, but they can't tell her because she doesn't know they're there.
Belly goes to text her, and Steven's like, you can't send her that. Like,
Dum-dum.
she doesn't know we're here.
Yeah, it was sweet. I mean, we're supposed to be talking about our least favorite scenes, so I don't know.
We'll talk about Laurel once we get to favorite lines.
Yeah, okay. But I think it's interesting that that's the first time that's ever happened. Well, I mean, it fades into Laurel's on the mid list. I still, to this day, have not seen someone reading my books in public ever. And I've been publishing for 15 years. Once a friend was somewhere nearby and someone had my book, like in a waiting room. So I came over and like signed her book. But I've never just natively seen somebody. Other people do. Other people send me photos, but not me. And it's just bizarre.
Yeah, I saw one time at my daughter's dance studio when she was really little, I saw another mom reading one of my books, but that mom had met me. So I think she had just
Okay.
picked up the book out of curiosity about me. So I don't count that. It
Doesn't
was
count.
the one who I like very tangentially knew. And then she was like embarrassed to see me when she had the book. Like it was kind of like, I think she
That's
was
so
reading up
funny.
on me, like, I wonder what's up with this,
That's
if her
cute.
stuff is any good. And then I kind of like caught her. So it was definitely not that like stranger in the wild. That has also never happened to me, like at the beach or at an air. I've had other people send me pictures where they saw somebody, but
Yeah.
it's never happened to me. Yeah.
Someday, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite line. What was your favorite line?
I actually liked when Cleveland and Laurel ran into each other and they have this like kind of witty banter when she just looks up from the table and says, I hope there's wine in those coffee cups. And Cleveland says, there can be, which is like the best response.
Yeah.
But he's looking good, also, I have to say.
I like Cleveland and Laurel. I
I
know,
like
like,
Cleveland, yeah, and they kinda say we don't really know exactly what happened, they kinda say they fizzled out. I mean, obviously, nothing was gonna happen during that year where
right,
she was losing Susanna,
right.
but Cleveland has this really interesting role to me where he was kind of like the Mr. Miyagi to Conrad on the
Totally.
on the sailboat. I mean, Conrad was teaching him about sailing, but Cleveland was teaching Conrad about life and anxiety and all these other things. And he kind of plays that role here with Laurel, where he's making all kind of sense, like encouraging her to open up to Belly and to be more to stop. Laurel's almost kind of doing like the Conrad thing where she's like, doesn't want Belly to see her struggling. And, Cleveland suggests that it might be helpful to Belly to see her
Yeah.
struggling and to be able to share that. And he has this story he shares about how when he was in depression, it wasn't his friends who tried to pull him out of the hole who made it better. It was his friends who climbed down in the hole with him. And it's this great analogy. And I really love those scenes. And he gives her a lot to think about. He gave me some things to think about in watching
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
I think Laurel is struggling. She is struggling with the fact that this book is having some of the success that she always wanted. I think she has really mixed feelings about it. It's first of all, she's put out something really vulnerable
Yeah.
and really personal in this story about losing her friend. And then I think, the idea that if this book is successful, she'll have to be like, accept that something good has come from losing Susanna, which you would think maybe it would be good to have a silver lining, but I don't think she's willing. I think she feels conflicted about it and maybe a little icky about it. I can relate to some of that. I mean, I actually lost my best friend and have written some fiction that kind of draws on some of the themes from that. And it's really meaningful to you, but you do have this moment of like fear where it's just a little too much, or I don't know, the idea that somebody could say that you were like exploiting what had happened or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
Some guilt.
far
There's like guilt associated
there's
around it, I
yeah,
think.
like,
Yeah.
it's so far from what's actually going on in your head, but you suddenly just have all this fear with putting it out there. So I think Laurel is actually kinda going through it from
Yeah.
the perspective of, like, all these things that she maybe wanted or maybe happening, but she didn't want them to happen like this, and that's why it really hit me when they're like, "Oh, someone's reading mom's book. We gotta take a picture," and then they can't send it to her.
Yeah.
It really kind of bummed me out, but, like, how would she have even felt if she had gotten that picture? She might
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, we sort of see because Belly sends her a different picture, right? That is also from the boardwalk, but from the past where it's her and Susanna and Laurel in this like cutout, thing that you take
Mhm.
pictures through. And Laurel, like, still, even after Cleveland has said this to her, she still keeps her at bay. She's like, oh, thank you, Bean. Like, can't talk now. So
Yeah.
she's shoving down her emotions. I think we're going to learn later that Laurel is also very mad at Belly about what happened at the funeral, understandably, and that's going to come to a head in an upcoming episode. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on. But we mentioned in previous episodes how like Belly was very alone. Like she was able to sneak out of her house to go
Yeah.
to cousins at Christmas. And, she was up late until 2 o'clock in the morning on the phone with Conrad, like doing laundry and stuff like that. So Belly's had a lot of isolation and responsibilities put on her in this last year.
And her mom doesn't really know what's going on with her. She doesn't
No,
realize that her grades are falling. She doesn't realize
exactly.
her relationship with her volleyball coach is not good anymore, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Belly and Steven actually have a nice interaction about that where she like makes a cutting comment about Laurel and Steven's like, you're misjudging her. Like that's not who she is and that's not what she's doing. And so yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, I don't think we ever really find out how well Laurel's book does. Like is it a
Mm.
New York Times bestseller or whatever? It's a little detail that would have tied a nice bow on all of this. But yeah, and
I
I
think
think
the fact that she's there and she runs into Cleveland, he's a great person to run into.
yeah. Well, yeah, and he's there on purpose to see her, right? He still wants
Right.
something with her.
Yeah.
Though that is like again, the else comes to a conference hoping to see her in season 3. So that's interesting. I just thought of that. I just think like, as a writer, I don't know about you, Jessica, but I always feel like writers, I describe us as magpies, right? So like people always think we're writing about people we know and things that, our own lives, like it's just all thinly veiled memoir. And I know you don't write like that and I don't write like that, but you are mining emotions and, when you meet people or like, I always said in my legal career, I always met people in crisis, which gave me an, really interesting perspective on humanity that I was able to use in my books. This is not the way we mostly interact with one another. And I think there's a level of guilt that comes with that as a writer because you know that people think that you're stealing from real life, even if you're not, but you always are in a way because, your books are the accumulation of your experiences and how you filter that through your imagination. So I think we're seeing some of that with Laurel here. I always thought the book parts of the show were extremely well done. Of course, Jenny is a writer herself and was, a less successful writer than she is now. And I think it's a universal experience for writers, this sort of like a mix of imposter syndrome and guilt because there's other people who aren't doing as well as you. And then, as you say, if you're actually, in this case, she is writing memoir. And so this notoriety or success that she's getting is directly related to Susanna dying. So yeah, it's well done, I think. All right, let's talk about some Easter eggs. The laser tag team names are Team Conrad and Team Belly. And one of them is blue and one is red. The colors. So Team Belly is red and Team Conrad is blue. So we got our color theory there. Obviously,
Interesting.
yes. Belly tells Jer she knows the keys to making him happy. Cheeseburgers and Ariana Grande, both of which come back later. And in fact, the cheeseburgers also come back in this season. It's something that Jer and Conrad share, I think. You say poetic justice when Aunt Julia denies Belly the muffins because she'll
She
accept the
only wants the muffins she can't have. She only wants the muffins that no one is offering her.
Right.
Every time Conrad offers her the muffins, she's like, no. But then Aunt Julia has them and she wants them. She's not allowed to have them. They're for the open house. She steals one.
Yeah. It's an interesting
There's a
metaphor.
lot to unpack there.
It's a lot to unpack there. And we still don't know the whole Junior Mint story yet. But remember we talked about things being locked and loaded, like the necklace and
Oh, yes.
right?
Junior Mint.
And Junior Mint. So Junior Mint, like this is a really long game. I just watched another podcast actually with Jenny Han this morning, a screenwriting podcast, where she sort of distinguished between Easter eggs and just laying pipe for callbacks to come back later. And I think she sees it more that way as opposed to an Easter egg. But this pipe was laid like a long time ago, right? So we've seen Junior Mint since season 1. We know Junior Mint was in. I'll never get rid of Junior Mint. She wakes up cradling Junior Mint. There's lingering shots on Junior Mint, but we have no idea where Junior Mint. We see Conrad like booped in Junior Mint's nose, but we don't know where Junior Mint came from. What's the context? So I think from context clues, you can guess that it's something connected to Belly and Conrad, but you don't know what. And here you finally find out that he won it for her. So despite the fact that she was like, no, I wanted the draft and you broke my heart that day, she kept Junior Mint anyway and slept with it for years, including this summer. It's still there in prominent place. What we don't know, and sorry, we also know that the necklace, the infinity necklace, is with Conrad, right? Conrad picked it up when he left his dorm room. So he has the necklace. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to break our hearts shortly. And then, of course, there is, if we go into color theory, the Easter eggs as well, which is the towels, right? And those towels that they come in with actually say Jeremiah and Conrad on them. And we saw those towels in episode 6 when Belly has had that dream. So she's kissed Jeremiah the night before in the pool. She has that dream in bed where Jeremiah's there and then Conrad's there and Conrad says, it's okay, we're meant to be. And then she gets up and she's all confused and she goes into the bathroom and she looks at the towels. And I forgot, please somebody tell us in the comments.
I think Jeremiah is red. And
Yeah, but
Conrad is blue.
it's blue, right? Which is confusing. Well,
Which
that's
is
what they have
opposite.
now. That's what they have now. But at the time, is that? I don't know what that is. I mean, it makes sense because Conrad's color, even though there's color theory, but Conrad's color, his color palette is blue, right? Like he's always dressed in blue. And that's why I'm so convinced that that shirt that Belly's wearing is Conrad's because it's blue. Anyway, so yeah, those were, so there was some color theory for sure in this episode. And I think really this is probably the season that it really started to take off. Conrad has the blue towel and Jeremiah has the red towel, right? So is she mourning Conrad and lusting after Jeremiah? I mean, I guess so. I guess that's what we're meant to believe. Sure. But still, I actually feel, I'm going to say this shockingly, I actually feel sorry for Jeremiah. Jeremiah doesn't have access to all Belly's thoughts, but even he can guess at some of it. And later on, when this all comes to fruition, he says something to her about all of this. And like, even when she is with Jeremiah, thinking about Jeremiah, about to get with Jeremiah, she's always thinking about how in love she is with Conrad. It's kind of not fair. Like, Belly just should have left Jeremiah alone.
She's trying to talk herself into it real hard.
She is, but that's not really fair to Jeremiah. Like, let's assume Jeremiah has real feelings. I don't think they're as deep or as long-lasting as he claimed for them to be, and I think the origin of them is partly in competition with his brother. But if he has real feelings, like, we do this. We get into relationships where one person cares more than the other, or, you're trying to erase somebody or to foreshadow. But I think that's a bit harsh that she's like clearly trying to move towards him when she's still thinking about how in love she is with Conrad. Anyway, that's just me. Daylight theory, the whole episode, well, it starts in darkness, right? And then it comes into the light and then it ends back up in the dark. Mirroring, Conrad and Belly are always good at the same things. They're good at the basketball game. They're good at the go-karts. They're competitive in the same way. That's as much of that as I saw in there. Okay, let's get to the Taylor Swift of it all. Our song is Sweet Nothing. Yeah. Did you know this song before?
I did. Yeah.
I love this song.
And it plays during the flashback when Conrad is winning her junior mint.
Yes. Yeah. It's a song off Midnights. And it's interesting because a lot of Midnights is like, well, there's like big poppy hits on it. And then there's some like angry songs when she's remembering John Mayer and other things that maybe didn't go the way she wanted them to. And then this is a song where she's just really vulnerable and she's sort of thinking about a sweet moment that she had with her lover. I spy with my little eye, tiny as a firefly, a pebble that we picked up last July. Deep down inside your pocket, we almost forgot it. Does it ever miss Wicklow sometimes? So it's like a very nostalgic song. So I think it fits the vibe of the Boardwalk scenes.
It also has this kind of, the melody of it kind of has this like bittersweet tone to it, which...
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say she's misremembering that scene, but she's remembering that scene play out in a very different way from how Conrad saw it play out, which again, we don't know yet, but
yeah.
She's kind of, there's a little bit of a jadedness to it when she's looking back. Like, I thought it was going to be special, but he just was trying to see this girl, and then he wanted this, and she's kind of bratty about it. I wanted the giraffe, but okay, I don't know, but the song kind of fits that. The tone of the song kind of fits everything about it, the bittersweetness.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Jenny Han is like into the lore of Taylor Swift and who the songs are actually about. Like, does she care about that? I have never heard her talk about that, but what's interesting here with this song is I think when Taylor was writing this song, she was actually kind of in the same place as Belly, so she is still with Joe Alwyn at this time, but if you listen to her albums, they've clearly had like tons of problems. They may have been on again, off again. And it's almost like she's trying to convince herself, but it's still sweet with us when we're alone, like it was in the beginning, and like, let's think back to this sweet memory. The other sort of backstory to this is this: on the way home, I wrote a poem. You say, what am I? This happens all the time. It's actually a Paul McCartney story about him and his first wife, Linda, where he talked about that. And so, is this song really about Taylor, or is this a song that she's writing thinking about, Paul and Linda McCartney? Like, I'm sure it's both on many levels, as it always is. But yeah, it's one of my favorite songs on Midnights, but not a song that a lot of people talk about, but I think it's really sweet. And it was used in a really sweet way in the documentary that just came out about the Eras Tour. Have you watched this yet, Jessica?
Yes, I did. I finished it over break. My
Okay.
daughter really wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
And,
What'd you think?
it was empowering, honestly. I mean, it really increased my admiration for her probably tenfold. But there was one
Yeah.
day where my daughter had to go play a basketball game and her team was really short. A lot of people had holiday plans where they were already out of town and they had almost no subs to go in. And my husband is the coach and he had told her, I think you're going to have to play the whole game with no breaks. And my daughter was stressing about it. And then we were watching this episode of the docuseries about Taylor, like she's working out and she's doing this 3.5-hour show. And I was like, girl, if Taylor can do that, you can play this whole basketball game. I'm like, you need to channel it. And she's like, you're right, I can channel it. And so it was very like empowering. We'd listen to some, what was it? Are You Ready for It?
Nice.
On our way to the game that day.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
she went out and kicked some butt. She didn't look tired
Okay.
at all.
Good
So
girl. Go get it, girl.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, one of my favorite things about the documentary is just like the behind the scenes when she's working on her mashups in those final 2 episodes. And it really strikes me. It's like, it's just her and her mom. She doesn't have an entourage. Like, she has an assistant. You see her flitter in and out. But like, it's her and her mom. The dad's there sometimes. Her brother's there sometimes. But like, I think it's so refreshing, that's just, it started out her and her mom. And it's still 20 years later. That's just the way it is. I think it was not what I expected it was going to be, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I didn't really have any expectations, but
Yeah.
it exceeded my non-existent expectation.
Well, I think a lot of
In every way.
Swifties really were hoping that we were going to get like an explanation to some of the Easter eggs. And there was nothing. In fact, we see her creating Easter eggs and then with zero explanation for what she's doing. It's quite funny. She's mocking us. So anyway.
I thought it offered great insight into her as an artist, not just the tour, but like you were saying, those scenes with the mashups. I loved the scene where Gracie Abrams is like completely overwhelmed by the way
it's great.
Taylor is trying to mash up the song because Taylor's like, and then it's just going to be like this and then this and then this. And she's like pulling all this. And Gracie's like, do I write this on my hand? Like,
yeah.
And
yeah,
I thought it was pretty telling and pretty amazing.
Well, and that the last mashup they do where they're both like get chills when they're rehearsing it is with This Love, right? Which is, of course, ties back to our show. And that really was not the best mashup on the whole tour, but one of the best mashups on the whole tour. It gave me a reappreciation for This Love, which was a song that was not like a huge song for me. But particularly the way they did it in rehearsal, I thought was even better, honestly, than they did it on stage. Though that is amazing, too. I'll send you a link so you can watch it. All right.
Well, I thought Sweet Nothing was a great choice here for a lot of reasons. Because I think when to better articulate what I was saying about how she feels like bittersweet about the memory, like it's a happy memory, but it's also kind of a sad memory because she felt like Conrad let her down that day. I think it is very like, was this nothing? Was this literally nothing to you? Like to me, this was really sweet. And maybe it was nothing to you.
Right.
And it was never nothing to Conrad, but she doesn't know that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's smart in all kinds of ways.
Well, and sweet, I mean, the titles of the episodes always work 2 ways, like love game, and Sweet Nothing is like something that's an expression like a sweet nothing that your lover like murmurs in your ear. But then, as you say, it can be taken the other way, which is like, was that just nothing? Like, were you just being sweet? And then, of course, Belly does talk about Conrad being sweet earlier in the episode, right? So, all right. Yeah. What Taylor song would you use instead?
I had to go looking because this was not one where some of these episodes I have another one like Snow on the Beach. There's one all along that I knew I wanted. This one I had to go looking, but I was really happy with where I landed. I landed on Holy Ground.
An interesting choice.
Which is, and the melody of this one is kind of like beboppy. Like it fits a day at the boardwalk.
Yeah.
But I had to make sure I looked up some of her quotes about this song to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding it. And yeah, she's like, from her perspective, Holy Ground was about looking back on a relationship that's over and for the first time not being sad about it being over, just being like happy about the happy memories. And I think the tone of it and some of the lyrics really mirror how they're all feeling about this day, like having their first like good day back at this place. I think Belly has this fear that like at the outset of season 2, especially like Cousins is ruined forever. Like Cousins, aside from the fact that she's made a mess of things with Conrad and Jeremiah, and, but Suzanne is gone and like things are never going to be the same again. And is she ever going to love any of these things that she loved without having it be overshadowed by this like grief of how things ended? And I think they have this day where they're all in this place they used to love, having a good time, and with these people that they've always loved, having a good time. And I think Holy Ground kind of captured.
Yeah. And Taylor does remark on that, right? She's like, oh, so like you can be okay being around Conrad now? Like, and
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, I can.
I don't know.
Great. Hell no. Belly's never honest with herself until literally the last 10 minutes of the show. But she comes off as being super honest at the beginning, right? Like she's very confrontational and she talks about she's in love with this and she's in love with that. And then she acts in total contradiction to what she says she wants. But the great line, and I guess we fell apart in the usual way and the story's got dust on every page. But sometimes I wonder how you think about it now and I see your face in every crowd. Great writing.
And it kind of applies, I feel like it kind of applies to Conrad and to Susanna, her feelings about both of them in that scene where she's kind of like, remember, there's several times in this episode where she thinks she sees Susanna and she's not there.
Yes.
And then she's literally talking about looking down as she's going up on this, what was it called? Tower of Terror.
Tower of Terror. Yes.
Because, darling, it was good, never looking down. And right there where we stood was holy ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
like
good.
it. I stand by it.
Yeah, that's a good choice. It's a good choice. I also had to go.
Yeah,
I also had to go looking, and I landed on a song that I have not listened to very often off of 1989 TV, a vault song, like we're deep in the weeds, called Suburban Legends.
I do not know this song.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Taylor has a lot of songs that are sort of about like, I wish we'd worked out, you know? And I think that is kind of, I wish we worked out, but I'm pretending I'm over it, but I'm still not over it, I think is where Belly is in the moment. So I don't know where I would have necessarily put it in the show, but I think it captures Belly's feelings. So I had the fantasy that maybe our mismatched star signs, because of course that's important to them, would surprise the whole school. When I ended up back at our class reunion walking in with you, you'd be more than a chapter in my old diaries with the pages ripped out. I am standing in East Gymnasium and I can still see you now. And then tick-tock on the clock, I paced down your block. I broke my own heart because you were too polite to do it. Waves crash on the shore. I dash to the door. You don't knock anymore and my whole life's ruined. So I think it's a lot of themes between Belly and Conrad. You know, I think Belly did break her own heart, honestly. And the waves crashing on the shore. So I think it's just like, it's where Belly is. And, you know, it's yeah, I thought we were going to make it and we didn't. And I'm sad about that. And, you know, when she has that thought of, when she says like, oh, when he's sweet like this, I remember why I love him, you know, and I think it's that. I just realized we didn't talk about my favorite line, just to skip back for 2 seconds.
Oh, no, we didn't.
We skipped over it. But my favorite line was actually a line delivered by Stephen on the beach, which is, you want to tell me what got you all worked up or be bros and pretend this never happened? And it really made me laugh because like in a moment that was so tension filled and sad, like it made me laugh. So good for you, Stephen.
I like the scenes when her character is being nice to Conrad because it doesn't happen that often.
Well, and I like seeing Conrad and Stephen's friendship in this episode because, like, you know, I think Stephen just feels like Conrad hasn't been himself. He says that, and he's just always looked up to Conrad. You know, he literally, that's the story he tells. Like, this is why I look up to you. And you know, we talked about in episode 7 when Conrad is like, yeah, let's go fishing. And he and Jeremiah are like, okay, we'll go fishing. You know, like everyone revolves around Conrad. Conrad's moods, everything sort of revolves around him. So it was nice to see their friendship. Okay, last segment, questions for Jenny Han. What's your question for her?
My question is about Cleveland. I was just curious if she ever considered giving Laurel and Cleveland a chance to work out. For a secondary character, you know, I think a lot of the secondary characters are obviously a device. They serve a purpose. Cameron, he serves a purpose. He's like this other option. Even Taylor, she serves a purpose as the best friend who's doing. But Cleveland, he gets a lot of the good lines. He lends a lot of perspective to Conrad in season 1. And in this scene, he lends a lot of perspective to Laurel. And I just kind of feel like there's some interesting meat to his character in some unexpected ways because he's so not what she originally assumed that he would be. And I'm just curious if she ever thought about giving them a chance to get together and work out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm not sure I remember. I have not watched ahead. I'm not sure I remember exactly what happens with him, if it's ever definitive. So I guess I will have to see for myself. But
I don't remember either because like there were scenes in this episode that I had never watched. And that is true for the episodes going forward. So, but yeah, you know, it's really interesting because it's a rom-com, right? The show is a romance, and it's about the journey to two people getting together. And there are other romances in the show, Stephen and Taylor, which is like starting to get going in this episode as well. But the adults do not get happy endings without, specifically spoiling anything that happens. Their Laurel is divorced. This is the first man that, she's been with since the divorce, and he's very into her, and he's great, and they share a profession, and they seem to have lots in common. But, I don't think there's going to be any happy ending here. And
maybe the timing wasn't right before, but that barrier is
now
kind of removed now. So
I know. And even something else that happens with Laurel's romantic life in season 3 then also doesn't work out. So
yeah,
it is a good question for her. Like, why give the happy endings to the kids and not to the adults? Maybe that'll happen in the movie. We'll see.
Maybe. See. I don't think there are any complicated feelings around him either. I don't feel like any of the kids would have resented it if Cleveland stuck around.
No, I think Conrad really likes Cleveland.
Yeah, Conrad likes him.
And the others don't know him, but yeah, I think, So, I mean, she actually did a big step, right? She invited Cleveland to the ball. The dev ball. Like, that was a big step. But anyway.
What would you ask her?
Yeah, I think my question is just sort of like, why is Belly so blind to what is right in front of her? Is she just trying?
Has to be.
I know. Narratively, she has to be. But like, is she just trying not to get hurt again? Like, and sort of a deeper point to that, and it's a point I was making earlier, is like, why have Belly remember constantly that she's still in love with Conrad? Like, if she wanted us to be invested in the relationship with Jeremiah, which I think she did, and of course some people were, to me, it's hard to get invested in that relationship knowing that Belly is still, like, not over Conrad, completely in love with him. And that I have other issues with Jeremiah and Belly, obviously, but, like, that is one of the major ones. I'm just like, well, I'm not buying this. I'm not going to buy into it because this isn't going to work out. She's in love with the other guy, which, I think I mentioned Redbird, the character from season 3, clocks. He's like, she never really cared about Jeremiah. I'm like, kind of true. So I think it's interesting. Like, why did she stick with that? It is true to the books, but like, if you wanted to really create a relationship that people were like rooting for, potentially working out, why keep so much Belly Conrad chemistry and connection in this season when it's supposed to be Jeremiah rising? That is what is supposed to be happening. But at this point, we've talked about, it feels forced. So anyway, that's my question for Jenny. But Jenny, come on the show. You went on the other podcast. Like, you're still doing podcasts with the show. Come on the show, Jenny. We want you. We have great questions.
Plenty of time left. There's
plenty of time left. Yeah, it's happening. We're getting her. Okay, so that is our episode for this week. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, do all the things, and put all your comments and questions wherever you're listening or watching us. And tune in next week because
it's what Susanna would have wanted.
All right, we'll see you soon.